From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another exciting episode of the CyberHub Podcast, Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. And if you thought you missed Patch Tuesday yesterday, well, guess what? I'm going to summarize it all for you right here today. Sorry, I'm in my room. I'm obviously this week, I'm at the Teammate CISO Village. I'm pre-recording a lot of these episodes. It's actually 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday night that I'm recording this, but consistency is the name of the game in everything we do in life, including this podcast, including when I'm, tired and a really great day and Chan House rules here prevail. So some stuff I'll write about on the Saturday article. So if you haven't subscribed to cyberhubpodcast.com and you're not part of that community where you're getting our daily newsletters with a summary of the show, and then on Saturday mornings you get our articles, then you're not going to get it, because I'm not going to talk about it on the show. It's only going to be in written format on the website on Saturday morning at cyberhubpodcast.com. Go and check it out. All right. Patch Tuesday. It's late. I'm not going to get an espresso. Whatever you're drinking as you watch this, please let me know in the comments. You guys don't comment enough. I want more comments. Let me know in the comments what you're drinking for coffee. I'm obviously very excited about it. Let's get into our Patch Tuesday. Here we go. Let's get into this. So Microsoft releasing their June 2025 Patch Tuesday, fixing 66 flaws, including one actively exploited zero-day and another publicly disclosed. The Patch Tuesday also fixed critical vulnerabilities, 8 being remote code execution vulnerabilities, 2 being elevation of privilege bugs. The number of bugs is insane: 13 elevation of privilege, 3 security feature bypass, 25 remote code executions, 17 information disclosures, 6 denial of services, and 2 spoofing vulnerability. This doesn't include Mariner, Microsoft Edge, and Power Automate, fixed earlier this month. The 2 zero-day CVE 2025-33053, a distributed authoring and versioning of the remote code execution vulnerability, was discovered by the team over at Checkpoint. Nadav Tzafrir, the new CEO of Checkpoint, and the former founder and managing partner of Teammate, here talked a little bit about their research today. I'm kind of excited for Checkpoint. I'm not going to lie. I felt the company was growing stale over the last decade. Nadav has a way of injecting new energy into stuff. If you don't know his career, he's an absolutely impressive cybersecurity leader and a human being. And so great for the Checkpoint team, explaining how this was being exploited in a zero-day by an attack. APT, they named Stealth Falcon. They discovered this in March of 2025 against a defense company in Turkey. The threat actors used a previously undisclosed technique to execute files hosted on a web dev server they controlled by manipulating the working directory of a legitimate built-in Windows tool. The other publicly disclosed zero-day is CVE 2025-33073, and it's a Windows SMB client elevation of privilege vulnerability with improper access controls in Windows SMB, allowing an authorized attacker to elevate privileges over the network. Microsoft has not shared how the flaw was publicly disclosed. However, Born City reports DFN CERT, the Computer and Emergency Response Team of the German Research Network, began circulating warnings for their red teams. Adobe, I hope you're sitting for this one. 254 security flaws packed in a major update, including major software products, a majority of which affects Experience Manager. 225 of the 254 reside in AEM, impacting cloud services, as well as all versions prior to and including 6.5.22. The issues were resolved in the release of 2025.5 and version 6.5.23. Almost all 225 vulnerabilities have been classified as cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, especially a mix of stored XSS and DOM-based cross-site scripting that could be exploited to achieve arbitrary code execution. The most severe of the flaws was patched by the company in this month's update concerning a code execution flaw in Adobe Commerce and Magento open source. The critical vulnerability CVE 2025-4711 has a 110 has a CVSS score of 9.1, and it's a reflected cross-site vulnerability that could result in arbitrary code execution. Adobe Commerce B2B, and Magento were all part of this. So is InCopy and Substance 3D Sampler, all part of this beautiful Patch Tuesday. Salesforce Industry Cloud, aka Salesforce Industries, also patching 5 zero-day vulnerabilities and 15 easy misconfigurations, potentially affecting tens of thousands of organizations. If you're a Salesforce customer, buckle up for this one. We've rarely talked about Salesforce on the show. I've always said big ERPs like Salesforce, like SAP, So many of these are going to be at the core of how threat actors go after organizations. And now, specifically here, we're seeing these tools to easily build custom CRM extension solutions for different industries like healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, communication, and government public sector organizations. The process is built on the technology that Salesforce acquired with its purchase of Velocity in June of 2020 and the use of Omni Studio low-code tools. So the research was reported to Salesforce. Salesforce declared 5 to be vulnerabilities and rapidly fixed them. 3 were fixed at the Salesforce end and require no action by customers. 2 need customer involvement. If the customer do not follow the instructions sent to them by Salesforce, they will remain actionable vulnerabilities. The remaining 15 issues are not vulnerabilities, but rather misconfiguration traps that are easy to adopt. And the app Omni researchers believe many user organizations have misconfigured CRM clouds. Something you don't have. This multi-cloud, multi-SaaS environment introduces so many new risks for security practitioners, and it really does challenge the status quo of the way we think of how we practice cyber. And that's really, really important to understand. So we know this is there. It's good. Make sure you patch that up. SAP also on the list, releasing 14 new security patches for their June 2025 security patch day, including a critical severity vulnerability in NetWeaver. That's CVE 2025-42989 with a CVSS score of 9.6. The bug is described as a missing authorization check in the NetWeaver application server for AB Alpha Bravo Alpha Peter. According to the software security firm Unopsys, the issue resides in the remote function call framework that allows attackers to bypass authorization checks and elevate their privileges. So under certain conditions, authenticated attackers can bypass the standard authorization check on authorized objects when using transactional TRF or queued RFCs, leading to an escalation of privilege. So those were all patched as part of the SAP patch Tuesday. 80,000 Roundcube webmail servers are affected by critical severity remote code execution vulnerability that's already being exploited in attacks. If you are a customer of Roundcube or it exists within your supply chain ecosystem, you have to be aware of this. CVE 2025-49113 has a CVSS score of 9.9. The flaw is described as a post-authentication remote code execution via PHP object deserialization and impacts all Roundcube versions released over the past decade from 1.1.1 through 1.6.10. According to researcher Kirill Fursov, who reported the security defect, the root cause is a flawed logic incorrectly evaluating variable names that begin with an exclamation mark, which leads to session corruption and PHP object injection. The vulnerability has remained hidden in Roundcube's code for more than 10 years. It can be reproduced on default installations, requires no dependencies, and its exploitation is not detected by firewalls. So you want to make sure you get that patched up or addressed within your supply chain. In a new twist of typical hiring-related social engineering attacks, the Fin6 hack, we're done with Patch Tuesday. We're moving on, folks. A lot to talk about today. So the Fin6 hacking group impersonating job seekers to target recruiters using convincing resumes and phishing sites to deliver malware. Fin6, aka Skeleton Spider, is a group initially known for conducting financial fraud, including compromising point-of-sale systems to steal credit cards. Back in 2019, they expanded into ransomware attacks like the Ryok and Locker Guga, if you remember those. In a new report by Domain Tools, researchers detail how they're switching up the typical employment scam by impersonating job seekers, targeting recruiters rather than posing as recruiters to lure job applicants. They hide behind fake job seeker personas. They approach recruiters and HR departments via messages on LinkedIn and Indeed, where to build rapport before they follow up with phishing emails. Again, patience. There's a saying in Arabic and kind of the whole thing. It's called sabr. Sabr means patience. And whenever you're fighting your adversary, the one with the most patience is the one that wins. And that's why China is so dangerous, right? China, I was talking to a fellow CISO here today at the Teammate CISO Village, and one of them said, China's advantage is they've got a 50-year plan. They don't deviate. They follow it through the ups and downs, the valleys, the highs and the lows. And the rest of the Western world elects new leaders every 2-4 years and so forth. And so the strategy changes every so often. And so there's gaps where those gaps don't exist in China. Well, the same exists in these threat actors. They have something in Arabic called sabr, patience, and that patience takes them down the path where they're able to be very patient. They're able to work their marks. They're able to work their targets, and then they're able to execute what they're trying to do right then and there. And those things are significant. something to keep in mind. Now, how do we protect against the traditional human behaviors in cybersecurity? And there's a lot to it, especially with the way AI operates today, the way it can impersonate people, the way it avoids spelling mistakes. It makes everything look and sound so much real, so much better. It eliminates some of the stuff we used to talk about in kind of our awareness 1.0, which is, look for the misspelling, look for the typo squatting. That doesn't exist as much anymore. And so it's something to keep in mind here. And here's kind of one of the things I recommend as kind of thinking about this problem as I was getting ready for the show this evening, and kind of thinking about this and kind of downloading all the information we spoke about today here at the Teammate CISO Village, was you have to enable your humans to make good decisions, and you've got to use the trust but verify model. Just because you're speaking to someone on LinkedIn doesn't mean that's the only person. Does that person have multiple profiles? How do you validate that this person is that person? Do they exist on social media? If someone's reaching out to you on LinkedIn or Indeed, do you try to find them on other platforms? How do you validate that you're really speaking to that person? And that's a real problem that we're going to have to solve. The question to me is there a real market for it? And I don't know how y'all feel about that, but let me know in the comments. Would love to get some feedback on it. Hundreds of Russian devices are being hit by a rare Werewolf crypto mining attack. The group known as Rare Werewolf has been hijacking computers across Russia and neighboring countries to mine crypto, especially XMR rig software, a legitimate tool for mining crypto on victim devices, according to Russian cybersecurity firm Kaspersky. The campaign has affected hundreds of Russian users, particularly targeting industrial enterprises and engineering schools, with more victims in Belarus and Kazakhstan outside of Russia. Once inside the system, these attackers steal login credentials. They install the XM rig to generate crypto using the victim's computing power. They also use a novel method to maintain access and avoid detection, programming infected machine to shut down at 5 a.m. daily. Before the shutdown, a script launches Microsoft Edge at 1 a.m. to wake up the computer, giving attackers a 4-hour window to establish remote access and do what they need to do. Keep that in mind. ConnectWise is warning customers that it's rotating digital code signing certificates used to sign Screen Connect, ConnectWise Automate, and ConnectWise RMM executables over security concerns. This is significant. The decision was taken after a third-party security researcher raised concerns about how certain configuration data could be abused by threat actors. Good for them to be proactive about it. ConnectWise underlies that the action is unrelated to any security incident. They're just trying to have good hygiene in doing it. The certificate in question, issued by DigiCert, was initially going to be revoked. We're going to revoke ConnectWise's certificates on Tuesday. That was today, as I'm recording the show on Tuesday at 10 p.m. EST. I'm recording this at 11:42. However, ConnectWise was able to get an extension to Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Likely the new Screen Connect version build will utilize the new certificates. Was not available. So something to keep in mind if you're a ConnectWise shop. Researchers disclosing a new secure boot bypass track to CVE 2025-3052 that can be used to turn off security on PCs and servers and install a bootkit malware. The flaw affects nearly every system that trusts Microsoft's UFI CA 2011 certificate, which is pretty much all hardware that supports secure boot. Binarily, researcher Alex Matarosov discovered the CVE flaw after finding a BIOS flashing utility signed with Microsoft's UFI signing certificate. The utility was originally designed for rugged tablets, but it was signed with Microsoft's certificate. It can run on any secure boot-enabled system. Binarily disclosed the flaw on Cert CC on February 25th, and it was being mitigated as part of Patch Tuesday there. And finally, 23andme leaders grilled by the smartest people in America. I'm kidding, Congress. So IQ extremely, extremely low. We really deserve better than what we have in Congress today. We really, really do, on both sides of the aisle. But I'm going to have some fun stuff here for you this evening. So lawmakers grilling 23andme executives throughout a hearing probing the privacy implication of the company's sale and its bankruptcy. The company filed for bankruptcy back in March. 1.9 million of the company's 15 million customers have chosen to delete their data. That's nothing. That's nothing. That's 10%. That's a little over 10%. Interim CEO Joe Selvasage said at the hearing, but that information did very little to persuade lawmakers. James Comer, the chairman of the committee from Tennessee, said it's imperative that 23andme ensure there's absolutely no legal or illegal way for foreign adversaries or anyone else to access or manipulate and abuse American genetic data to advance their nefarious agendas. citing a 2019 Department of Defense telling service members to avoid giving their DNA to 23andme. If you're going to do a DNA test, do it at your doctor's office. It costs a little bit more money, but it's protected under HIPAA. Many members also worried about the broader implication about data privacy threats, with Omer saying the breach of 23andme data could, for example, lead to targeted advertising, taking advantage of individuals with mental health conditions, fueling higher insurance premiums, or causing restrictions on credit extensions. Over 1 million customers learned they carried a genetic variant associated with blood clotting risks, allowing them to seek care to prevent a potentially fatal clot. Take baby aspirin, folks. Congress also asking him to vet buyers after a TTAM, a research institute and a nonprofit medical research organization that was recently formed, won the auction for a $305 million bid to acquire 23andme's firm after a $256 million cash deal with Regeneron Pharmaceuticals was announced on May 19th. The FTC still has to approve the sale. There's a lot of concern there. And one of the dumbest Senate congresswomen in Congress, Rashida Tlaib, the vile anti-Semite from the great state of Michigan, talking about a worry. She's worried that no one wants to live in a data-driven surveillance state. Comes the person who endorses terrorist groups. This is why I despise Congress, because people like Rashida Tlaib are allowed to be there, somehow voted there by God knows what reason, and spew a bunch of BS about data-driven surveillance state when she supports terror organizations across the world and a whole bunch of other stuff. So to Rashida Tlaib at the hearing, I say, just shut up. And that's our Congress. So there you got it. That's it for our show today. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll obviously be pre-recording the show for tomorrow, and then we'll be back on Monday with a lot more. But tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.